So it's that now we have the complete data model built in BW with all the master data, and the cube is ready for us. And if you look at the data what is given, it's all available in what? Flat files. These are the different files. We need to extract data from these files and load into the respective target objects, whether it is master data or text tables or your cube. Yeah. Yes, next we'll load even hierarchies also in the same case. Done? Okay. Now we'll start with one by one. As per the design, so first thing is we have model attribute table for geography. So we need to load what? Master data for this. So now let's take this up now. Now what is the InfoObject for geography? Because this is a geography key. This is my InfoObject name. So let me go to BW and see whether, I'm just making sure whether all the attributes are fine or not. Going to attributes, this is where I have the attribute city, postal code, sales territory, country, and state, province name and country. Okay. And let me look at the file. Where is this? Geography details. So geography key would go. Geography key will get into this. Okay. So then we have city column is ready, and then what? Postal code, it's here, done. Then sales territory key, then what? State province name, and then what? Country region code. Done was? Okay, good. Done. So I see for this geography I only wanted what? Only attribute. There is no text which I was modeled it. Only attribute table. Okay. So this is the file given to us. From this file I need to extract all this data and then take into this attribute table of geography. Clear? Okay. The first thing, so we'll take down the steps what we do here. First two examples I'll give you steps, then I keep doing it. Okay. First thing is insert the char InfoObject as InfoProvider. How do we do this? Now look at this. So what is your target bus? Attribute table of what? Geography. So catch hold of this InfoObject. Okay. Go to the InfoProvider menu. This was the area we were working on. This is the info area, right? So I would like to have another sub info area to handle all the master data into that. So I'll say right click. I'll say what? AWMD master data objects. Done. So under this info area I would like to maintain all the master data providers. So right click, say what? What is this? Insert characteristic as info provider. Give your info big name. Jet geography. Say OK. Refresh. Now you get to see this info bit here. When you expand, you get to see this attribute. This symbol indicates attributes. Why only attribute? Why not? Why is that we are not seeing text, or why is that we are not seeing hierarchies? Because the geography info bit was enabled only with attributes. That's why I get only attributes. So ultimately this is my target and this is my source file. From this file I would like to load into the target. Okay. So next step would be create data source. Create what? Data source. But always make sure if I need to create data source, It's a prerequisite that we need to have the source system connection already. This time you're loading it from where? Flat file or DB connect, or which one? Flat file. So I should make sure the flat file connection is already available. Where is it? I go to source systems, file. Do I have this? I already have this. I can just right click and say check. There's a problem, so let me activate this. I'll say right click and say what? You can activate, or you can create, right click and say create new also. Okay. And let me just fix this up. Say what? Right click and activate. When I check there's a problem with the IDA configuration, I'm just activating it. So before you start, because data source is always dependent on source system. So before you start creating data source, you must make sure your source system connection is fine. So if it's not fine, just fix the issue with that. Yeah. If you're loading from flat file, you should make sure the source system connection for flat file is available. If you're loading it from R3, you should make sure the source system connection with R3 is done. Yeah. So now it's activated. Now if I say check, inbound not found, basic, so it is disturbed. We'll try this one. So I'll use this connection, test. Okay. If not, I can just create a new one. But in the real time, you would have one source system connection. Everyone will start using the same. Yeah. Good. I have the connection. Now I would like to create data source. Now what do you mean by data source? What do you mean by data source? Because before we start the navigation, if you understand what it is, then it does make sense while creating it. What is the data source?
Structure of fields and from where the source data comes.
So it defines multiple things. One is source of data. Ante? From where I need to, what is my source, from where the data comes in. Okay. Then it defines something called TS. When I say TS, transfer structure. So when I say transfer structure, what does it mean? Okay, when I say transfer structure, it's like set of fields. Okay, what fields are coming from the source and in what sequence are they coming is specified by transfer structure. Source nunchi file, palan file nunchi vastundi data. That is what defined by what? Source of. This will tell you from where is my data coming in. Akkadi nunchi ఏమేం fields వస్తున్నాయి, ఏ sequence లో వస్తున్నాయి అనేది. So it specifies list of columns, or I can say fields, because when you refer to source, we refer them as fields. In BW, we refer them as InfoObjects. So list of columns and fields, and also specify the sequence. So the transfer structure will tell you what columns are coming in from the source, in what sequence are they coming in. Okay, this is your data source. And another point, data source is always specific to source system. Ante etlante, so I create one data source, say DS1. Okay, and let's say this DS1 is a flat file. Same way, let's say you are loading it from R3. Even from R3, I can have a data source with the same name, DS1, because DS1 of flat file is different from DS1 of R3 connection. So it is always specific to source. Ante oka data source ante ఏదో source system connection అయి ఉంటుంది అన్నట్టు. Flat file దో, DB connect దో, R3 దో, ఏదో దానికి it will be connected. So always. Okay. Okay, boss. So knowing this, so when you say creating data source, you'll have to basically configure the details where you specify what is the source from where I need to extract data, and what columns are coming and what sequence are they coming in. Boss. Now look, how do I create this? You can straight away go to this menu. Two ways you can do. Select the connection here, right click and say display data source tree. You can go get into this screen. So see which menu did I get in? Data source. It's a direct go change. Otherwise you go to data source directly here. Now here you can create data source. Right click and say create data source. But you want to, whenever you create data source, you should make sure for which source system are we creating it. So you go drop down here and choose of which connection first. Yeah, what is it? Right. So if it's let's say it is something else here, it is some other system now. Okay, look at this, different system. So I'll go choose my system as what? Test. Okay, was fine. Then in the InfoProvider, how do you organize your targets with info areas? Similarly here, what are the data source you create, you can organize them with something called application component. It is just like a folder, nothing serious about it. Okay, so whatever data sources I'm creating it for AW sales, I want it under one folder. So what I'll do, in the top node, right click and say what, create application component. So I'll say AC AW sales something. So do I have info here now? But consider here, I have not prefixed Z, but when I don't do, it does prefix Z automatically in case of application component. If you don't give anything, it does prefix it. But if you prefix Z, it does not prefix one more Z again. That happens only for application component like that. Okay, now I'm going to create a data source now. Now before I create data source, you should ask, and data source will be always 4 types. We'll have 4 types of data sources: attribute, text, hierarchies, and transaction data. Now if you ask me a question, when will you use what? What will be your answer? Based on target. Simple. Suppose I am extracting some data, so I am creating some data source. You are defining this data source to targeting what? Attribute table, then I would create attribute data source. If you are targeting text table, I would create text data source. If you are targeting hierarchy tables, then I would create hierarchy data source. If you are targeting queue, then transaction data source. Now this time, what's your target? Attribute table. So what type of data source would you go with? Attribute data source. Right. Now, because right click on this application component and right click, double click on the BW game. Right click and you get option is create data source. And then it does open up a dialog. You got to be logical enough. Logical unte chalu. So this is a dialog box where it says create data source. Now obviously what is it asking you? Data source text box, and what should I give in? Name of a data source. So I can give any free name, I'll say, but I'll try to follow this naming, so that I can easily recognize it later. I'm creating this data source to load attribute table for this object, right? So I'll give what I'll do. Generally naming bit, InfoObject pair bit underscore ATTR ante. So this is the data source of this to load attribute table for this one. Any name you can give, but I'm preferring doing this. Now this is what is this? Always data source is always specific to a source. Always. You're creating some data source. Is it a flat file or is it of DB connect? Is it of R3? Is it of myself connection? Which connection it is? Always. Data source cannot exist without the system name. Always compounded. Data source name is always component with connection. ఎందుకంటే వేరే కనెక్షన్లతో సేమ్ డేటా సోర్స్ నేమ్ ఉండొచ్చు. You can have same data source name of different connections possible. Now what is this here? Data source type. Drop down. What type of data source you want? Attribute, text, transaction, and hierarchies. We'll see. Attribute, text, and hierarchies, and transaction data. We'll see the segmented later. Now what is it? Attribute, master attributes. Done. There's some option called template. Suppose if you already have some data source A, now you're trying to create B. I want B to be same as A. Then I can use template. But now here there's nothing template for me. I'm just creating it from start. Now you need to start defining all these properties of the data source here. In the general info, what is it asking? Short, medium, and long descriptions. I'll try to give it. So I'll try to give the same thing for medium and long. Now what is this here? Application. This is the name of the application component under which you are defining your data source. And this is the date and time when this data source has been created and the user who is creating it. Okay, we'll not worry on this now. And then there's something called, what is this? Content release and version. You'll have this property field only for business content data sources. What do you mean by business content data source? Standard data source delivered by SAP. So to which content released, ante man BW versions eట్లు ఉంటాయో వాటి ఇచ్చిన బిజినెస్ కంటెంట్లో కూడా రిలీజ్లు ఉంటాయి. సో విచ్ రిలీజ్ డస్ దట్ కంటెంట్ బిలాంగ్, దట్స్ హౌ యుల్ హ్యావ్ ఇట్. ఓకే, సో వీఆర్ నాట్ వరీడ్, దట్స్ ఇట్. ఓకే, దెన్ వాట్ ఇస్ దిస్ tab? Extraction. So in the extraction tab we are going to define exactly the source from where the data has to be extracted. Now look at this. Don't worry about all this now. Then what is the option here? Adapter. Now since your source system is flat file, it does This adapter properties will change based on the type of source. Since it is flat file, it does ask you these adapters. Do you want to load a text file from, what is it? Do you want to load a binary file from local workstation or application server or Excel file? What is it? Text type file from local workstation, and what is it? Text type file one. Up. Now where is your file? It's in my desktop. Yeah, so I'll say what? Text type file from local workstation. Okay. And see, now in 7.3 it does also supports loading from Excel file also. XLS files also support. Now I'm going with this. Now, what is your file name? And you should understand the properties automatically. What does it ask you? Name of the file. I'll browse through. Sorry, server local workstation. Browse through. Desktop. AW sales. What is the file? Geography details. If you go to but it says what is this? .csv. Now this is a file, right? Now does this file have any header row? First row should be formatted as header. So I say header rows to be ignored is 1. Okay, fine. Then what type of file is it? Fixed length file or CSV file? I'll tell you what is fixed length later. Fixed length they don't have any separator. They just say first 10 characters is geographic key. Next 10 characters is state province name. Next 5 is country name. So they fix the length. That is called fixed length file. You will not have any separator based on the length. I must split that data. Okay, but here it's not that. We saved it as CSV file, right? Suppose if I open with this notepad, you would see geographic key, comma, name, comma. You see this value separate with commas here, but that might differ from system to system settings. So it might be semicolon, whatever. You just look at that there like this in the notepad. Now you say data format is what? Separated with separator. What is my separator of the field value? Comma. In this case it is comma, but it could differ. Okay, and don't worry on this. That's it. Now just go. Now I need to go to the fields tab. So in this field, so in the extraction tab, you specify the source of data. A file nunchi data techukovala. In the fields tab, we are going to define the transfer structure. Okay, a file nunchi vastunnayi sare. నేను చెప్పినా డేటా సోర్స్ అంటే 2 ఉండాలని. Now I finished with this. I have specified from which file it should take database. My next property will be this one. ఏంది? And that is what defined in this tab, fields tab. What should have, and logically if you understand what is transfer structure, what will you define in this? What is transfer structure? List of columns, and in what sequence. So the sequence in my transfer structure must match my file. File as per the file, this transfer structure has to be adjusted, because the fields tab will define transfer structure, which tells you the sequence, the list of columns, and the sequence of the columns what is coming from source. So what I can do, instead of specifying one by one here, what I will do, I can go to the proposal tab. I will say load example data. So based on the data what is there in the file, it does load the sample, and then say now if you go here, it is proposing those columns. Okay. Now what is saying? Geographic key is a first. What is the name? How did it bring this column field name? From the file header. Yeah. We had this header column name was geographic key. That's why it takes first column as geographic key. Okay. Next, so heading, column heading nanta, it takes that field as field name automatically. I'm okay. If you're not happy, say geographic key is okay. City, province, NAM vachina. I want it as what? NAM. I want it NAME. I want country region. If it's country, I'm okay. Postal code, okay. Postal ante నాకు చాలు. You can still customize it, okay. Sales territory. KE ఉంటే వై కూడా ఉండి లేకపోతే మొత్తం సేల్స్ టెరిటరీ ఇస్ ఫైన్. ఏ ప్రాబ్లం, యాజ్ లాంగ్ యాజ్ యూ అండర్స్టాండ్ ఇట్, ఇట్స్ ఫైన్. ఓకే, నెక్స్ట్. నౌ ఫర్ జాగ్రఫిక్ కీ ఇట్స్ ఆల్రెడీ ప్రపోజింగ్ సంథింగ్. వాట్ ఇస్ దిస్ హియర్? డేటా టైప్. హౌ? based on the values it is proposing it first. Okay, so if I go to my file, if I see the data filter, it's all numbers. What is the max length? 3, right? If you see what does it propose, it is taking length to 6. I don't really need 6. Can I make it 3? So you can customize date type, all those also, no issues. Yeah. What anything can be customized. Say for example, now I don't want that to be integer. I'll say let it take it as num_c only. I can change it. City char, okay, this is fine, and lowercase is also enabled based on the data available. Which one? What? Not changed? Changed. Because integer it's fixed, it takes like that. I can change it value. Okay. So anything, say sales territory again it's taking, I want it as num_c only. I can customize it all this. Okay. Fine, clear? Okay. I'll come back to this properties later. Okay, was done. And then say activate. Ante was. Field name is longer than 16 characters. Okay. State province. Activate. So this is how you create data sources. That's it. Now, if by using this data source, I'll be able to access my data from the source system. Yeah. Now I can check this out. I can go to preview and I'll say read preview data. How many it is reading 10,000, almost it is reading my entire data for me. I can go to bottom and see this is how the data would be read. I can check the preview how this is not loading, it's only preview how data would be extracted for me. Fine. So now it's that I have data source which is able to give me data, and I have the target to which I must load the target, where I must load my data. So I've got source, I've got target, but both are not been connected yet. See, if I look at this target and say right click, say show data flow, show data flow. Let me go to data source and say right click, display data flow. Anything upwards or downwards. What it says? Data source is just like that. That is doesn't have any connection to the top level node. So what I would do, look at this. So I'll go, remember your data source name. Anyway you can do, just select this data source. Now go to the I need to connect both of them with what? So I'm doing mapping here. So data source has got fields. My target has got attribute InfoObjects. Now I need to say which field in my data source will populate data into which InfoObject in my target. So mapping between these two is what you perform with transformations. Clear? So next step would be what? Third step what? Create transformations to map yes, want a source object. What is your source object? Data source. What is T wanted? Target object. What is target object? Master data. So create transformations to map the source object. Always, whenever you say mapping with transform, it will have two objects. One is source and target. So in this case, what is my source object? With the help of transformations, we can create mapping between source object and target object. What is my source object in this case? Data source. What is my target object in this case? Master data attribute. I need to map those two. So now look, how do I do this? I can right click on this master data attribute and say what? Create transformation. So I am creating transformations. For this transformations, what is my target object? Geography bus. How it has fixed that already? Target geography. How it has fixed the target as geography bus? Geography, that to what? What is this? Attribute. Why? Since I have right clicked on this attribute of this, it understands this as a target and is asking me what? Data source. What is my data source? Source of the object, source of transformation. If I go to data source and say right click on this and say what? What is create transformation? Now it takes what? It takes data source. Now it asks me the target. And target apply. So either we right click on that. Okay, anywhere you can go about. Yeah. So let me go this better way. I right click and say what? Create transformations. Okay. So the target is geography attribute table. Source object. Source could be data source, info source, DSO, cube, InfoObject, anything. That's why I'm saying, I did not say transformations are used to connect data source and target unless. Transformations are used to map source object and target object. Source object could be anything, target object could be anything. But in this case, source object is data source and target object is attribute. That's the concept, okay? So what will say? Data source. Now what does it ask me? Name of the data source, and then it asks me which source system of this data source. Wherever data source name goes, source system of it will be following it first, because data source will not have meaning without the source name. Yeah. So ఈ టార్గెట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ కి ఈ డేటా సోర్స్ మధ్యలో మ్యాపింగ్ పెట్టాలి అనే పాయింట్. నౌ సే ఓకే. సో ఇట్ టేక్స్ మీ టు స్క్రీన్ వేర్ ఐ కెన్ స్టార్ట్. దిస్ ఇస్ మై left object is my source object and right side object is my target object. So in the left hand side I see source object is data source, so I get to see list of what it says, fields. In the right hand side I see my info object master data BW, so I see what సో లెఫ్ట్లో ఫీల్డ్స్ ఉన్నాయి, రైట్లో ఇన్ఫోబిక్స్ ఉన్నాయి. ఏ ఫీల్డ్ నుంచి ఏ ఇన్ఫోబిక్ డేటా పంపించాలనుకున్నా పంపించేసి ఎట్లా పంపిస్తాం? మ్యాప్ ఇప్పుడు పంపించడంలే, మ్యాపింగ్ చేస్తున్నాం. ఏదాని నుంచి ఏదానికి పోవాలని అంతే. జాగ్రఫీకి టు జాగ్రఫీ, సిటీ నుంచి సిటీకి, స్టేట్ ప్రావిన్స్ నేమ్ నుంచి స్టేట్ ప్రావిన్స్. ఇట్ నీ నాట్ బి ఇన్ ద సేమ్ సీక్వెన్స్. ఓన్లీ థింగ్ ఈస్ ది ట్రాన్స్ఫర్ స్ట్రక్చర్ ఆఫ్ డేటా సోర్స్ షుడ్ మ్యాచ్ మై ఫైల్ స్ట్రక్చర్ అంతే. But it need not match my attribute list. No, we can do zigzag mapping also. Country వచ్చేసి test go to what? Country region code. Postal code వచ్చేసి దీనికి వెళ్ళాలి. Then sales territory key is this. అంతే boss. In this case, I am pretty much happy with the data what is coming from source. If I am not happy, then I would write a lot of routines and then transform my data in this place. I can use the same transformations to transform the data what is coming from. So if I am not happy with the data or the quality of data, I can modify it by using the transformations here. Any doubt? No. This is what I want to state. Yeah.
So instead of using the proposed tab, you can also create your own data source.
I'm saying while creating data source, instead of creating proposal tab, can we type in the fields list? Welcome. Since it is fine, you have patience to type, but if you have a file with 200 fields, doesn't make sense.
So in the proposal tab, we change some fields like name and everything. So we really like how that is documented. Like suppose later on if you want to.
We don't really document the changes what we do. Once the structure is finalized, we'll place a screenshot or the copy only the structure. We don't really document saying it is actually proposed nm, we removed nm. Those documents will not be there. Once it is finalized, this is the structure, you put that into the documentation. That's it. And now I'm activating this person. So with this, source, every InfoObject will have a SID table. Fine. Which source table? This one. I said this is source object. That's only structure. When I say table, it will hold data physically first. When I refer a word structure, it means it does not hold any data physical in it. It's only a structure which data comes in, goes out. Interface laga untundi antavaraku. This, but anyway, this will not have a SID table. There is no way relevant. There is fields. That is no way relevant to BW. It is all source object, source system specific. Yeah. Now done. With this, did I map it? Should was I've got InfoObject. When I expand, I see attribute table. When I expand, I see what? Transformations. When I expand, I see data. So I am able to see the complete link here. Here itself, I don't have to jump here up and down. Or I can go to data source here. I can see from here also. Now I see data source. I want to see link upwards. You can just click on this. What is data source? Expand. What is data flow upwards? What is it? You'll have transformations and that connected to what? Attributes. కింద నుంచి పై కనెక్టెడ్ చూడొచ్చు, పైన ఎట్లా కనెక్ట్ ఫ్లో చూడొచ్చు అన్నట్టు. నా ఐ వాంట్ సీ ద సేమ్ ఫ్లో ఇన్ గ్రాఫికల్ మోడ్. ఎట్లా చేస్తాను చూడు. సెలెక్ట్ దిస్ అట్రిబ్యూట్ టేబుల్, రైట్ క్లిక్ ఆన్ దిస్ అండ్ యూ హ్యావ్ ఆప్షన్. ఇక్కడ దీనికి రావడం లేదు కదా. ఓకే, డేటా సోర్స్ రైట్ క్లిక్, సే వాట్ షో డిస్ప్లే డేటా ఫ్లో అండ్ సే ఐ వాంట్ సీ ద ఫ్లో అప్వర్డ్స్. డేటా సోర్స్ పైకి అన్నట్టు అప్వర్డ్స్. షో మీ దిస్. దీని మీద క్లారిటీ ఇంతే. ఇదేంటి డేటా సోర్స్. ఇదేంటి మాస్టర్ డేటా, దీని రెండు మధ్యలో ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్. యూ వాంట్ సీ టెక్నికల్ నేమ్స్, యూ కెన్ క్లిక్ ఆన్ దిస్. జెడ్ జియోగ్రఫీ అండర్ స్కోర్ ఎడిట్ ఇయర్ ఇస్ మై డేటా సోర్స్ నేమ్, attributes of jet geography is my target, and this is your transformation space. If I can double click this to get to there. For example, if I double click on this, it takes me to any object from there also. Now tell me, what is the doubt?
The data will come into data source first and then enter the.
Still, I did not get to the top. Till here, any issues? I've got data source, target, mapped with transformation. The flow is ready. ఇప్పుడేం డౌట్ ఉందా?
Let us say I don't need any transformations. Can I not have a direct link from file to the target?
He's saying if you don't need any transformation, at least you should say